Yeah, I want to relay one of the most radical things I ever came across in dealing with anything. Thought I saw some crazy stuff. And I heard things too. I mean, people like to hear all these rumors and garbage. And this was a deal or a contract that was going to go between Russia and China, and it was going to be brokered by some Americans for entire deal was $1.2 trillion. In other words, trillion with a T. And a lot of people lose concept of what kind of money that is. And obviously, if you have $1 billion, it takes 1,000 years to spend it. If you're only spending $1 million a year, which people can't even fathom spending $1 million a year. So, now this obviously did not happen, but it was a very ambitious deal that was attempted. And it really leads me to believe there's a lot of things like this going on throughout the world. You know, people heard about in Italy all the U.S. Treasury bonds that were found. You know, they were fakes and all this garbage. Well, this was for real materials. It was for tons of isotopes, various kinds. And isotopes, depending on what kind they are usually worth more than gold. Now, Russia is a country that has a lot of engineers, very smart, bright people, mathematicians, and they seem to be good at producing these types of things. And it was materials that China needed, and China is a commodity poor country. Russia is a commodity rich country, but China has a very quickly growing economy. So the Americans' sides, there are some people in the United States and Europe. Actually, a lot of people weren't even originally American background, but they're U.S. citizens. They were getting together to facilitate this deal, and how it worked was, from my understanding, I think there's like an export tax if you send, or all these regulations to get stuff out, and I don't know what the hell. That part I'm not clear on, but it was like if you go through the shortcut, in other words, without bypassing the bureaucracy, it was worth it to deal. There were other people that would take a cut off the deal. And supposedly the American side was going to get, or I say the American, I don't even know, like half the people weren't even born in the United States. They were going to get like 120 billion, supposedly 10%. And I'm like, you know, a little crazy because, you know, that is an insane amount of money. But this was serious. This wasn't a joke. It wasn't La La Land or anything like that. The only problem is, I think it gets jinxed when people start thinking about money too much. But I like the concept behind it because Ron Paul, he'll talk about gold is money, but you know what? That statement means nothing. What these people were attempting to do was more something. Still didn't come out, but it was more closer to reality because there were some concrete steps of how they're going to get money in the country. And a couple of the projects were excellent, and I'll get into what they were. Well, how these materials were to be transported was from Russia over to Latvia. You see Latvia is right over here. Now, it's a big commodity exporting country. You know, Russia exports a lot of commodities through Latvia. Now, these isotopes, even though there are lots of them, they're still not as bulky as shipping of steel or aluminum. So, I don't know how the hell they were doing it, but from there, they went from Latvia over to Germany, and I'd imagine that was by, you know, the Baltic Sea. And then they were assayed to make sure they had the right stuff. And they're going to go on to a private placement platform, which is a closed trading platform to handle the transaction. There was a professor in the United States that was handling that, and he had a company that was in Switzerland, and the entity that was going to that was going to actually make the trade, or whatever the hell you want to call it, because I'm not familiar with this junk. This was getting beyond any crap I heard of in my life, but it was real. There were a non-profit organization that was linked between the United States and Europe, and when the money Well, supposedly, physically, this stuff was supposed to go from Germany to the Middle East, then over to China. And one of the people that was going to handle that part in the Middle East, he like had a heart attack. He didn't die, but he was like all the stress and stuff like that. So that was partly why this fell apart. But the other main part was the non-profit organization that was between the United States and Europe. It was the guy that was in not the head of it, but the head of the accounting part of it. I could say a lot more detail about everything, but I can't. So, just look at this as like crazy fiction or whatever. He got in trouble for something else in Europe, so they were asking him all these questions, or I don't know if he actually got in trouble, but they were asking him all these questions about something else, so they kind of backed off from doing this. So in a way, it was one of those illegal things that was actually good to do because it would just got money into the United States and would have made a transaction between Russia and China. And the only one that got screwed out of that would have been maybe Putin or somebody on the top. And Russian businessmen would have got a lot of money out of it, and they would have been more likely to give money to Russian people versus the guy that's running that whole state. Despite what many Americans think and British and stuff like that, they don't want to believe that guy on the top is evil, but he is. But wherever it was going to go, I wasn't going to mention the state, but it was actually, I was just going to say the Southwest, but part of it was going to go to develop claims in Arizona. And, Arizona is actually a big silver producing state, or one of the, not the biggest. I think Nevada might be the biggest one for silver, but Arizona is still a good sized silver producing state. And there was a number of proven claims out there that had, magnetite ore, silver, gold, even some platinum and palladium. And the way they're going to run it was like a strip mining operation. And I saw all the costs, and I know the information. I know who the hell it is and everything. This was more or less something that was attempted, but more concrete than what you're getting out of these politicians talking back and forth about a bunch of garbage. And I'm going to get on to something else here because I think it's the American businessman, the really aggressive people that are being, maligned a lot of times, are the ones that are actually probably going to do more good for this country than you ever will get out of any kind of new bank policy or anything the government or passes a law or anything. In other words, if you need to get the money, find a way to get the damn money, and start the project. And you're in a risk business, right? So you got to work to make it work. But in Arizona, they had these claims that were out there for some years, and they were proven, they were tested many, many times over. And they're worth a lot of money because, they're proven that the stuff is in the ground, but you need quite a bit of equipment to get it out in, large amounts. So it would have been like a strip mining type of operation. This is how I kind of learned about what the details are on starting up mines. It's not easy and it's not cheap. Basically, they need like $1 billion to start this thing. It's like, always need $1 billion. To me, I personal common sense would have never done that in a million years. I wasn't running this damn thing. I was just familiar with a lot of things on it. I would have just started on a very small scale to test it. That's my common sense. And when you see it producing money, it makes it more. I don't like, pie in the sky dreams too much like that. But I think the concept was very solid. And as far as getting things, you can see the Hopi Indian reservation. It was not, it was in the same state anyway. But as far as being an economic boon to this area, it would have been a great economic boon. And you're developing the natural resources in the United States. What the hell is wrong with that? Nothing. Another thing was there was some condos that were going to be built out here in the islands. Now, that I think was a very good idea too, because even though you might say the economy's down, looking at the weather patterns that are happening in UK and Europe and Germany and stuff, they're getting more and more severe weather. Pretty easy to sell vacation packages, I would think, to down in the islands. And who would have been building a lot of this stuff would have been construction companies out of Florida. A lot of materials coming from Florida, because everything pretty much is imported to the islands and stuff like that. They'll hire labor and stuff, but they'll bring in labor too. So that would have been a big economic boon for the United States too. But a number of other projects that I can't get into because that was a hell of a lot of money. Supposedly the money would have been, I just can't imagine that transferring that kind of money either. To me, it's crazy. But I've seen enough stuff to realize that it wasn't a dream. There was a reality behind a lot of it, especially considering the names and the players. Now, since that didn't work. I personally think it's a damn good idea, and I think these types of things are good ideas. Now, I'm going to say something in defense of a lot of the so-called elite. Now, John Corzine. Now, I'm not going to say necessarily in defense of him, but I just want to point out something interesting about this guy that people are kind of missing. This is not a stupid person, obviously. When he made this financial bet, that he lost. I'm sure he was doing it with the intention of winning the bet, and I was wondering to tell you the truth, I was wondering if he was Jewish, because a lot of people think everybody's Jewish is he's not. I had to look that up. Anyway, it was good because I think the Jews are getting too much heat lately, about everything. So he wasn't, so I want to point that out. He wasn't Jewish, okay? And the one thing is, when he made this bet, he's not a stupid person. So, he lost on the bet. Just like, some of these other deals that were being attempted by people I just talked about, didn't happen. And, but, say he won the bet on this. I almost don't think he was necessarily doing it for his own, I'm sure it was his own personal wealth, but I think it was more like the pride of winning. Like in other words, it would have been that much more for what his ambitions were. Not so much like, because I'm sure he's got a lot of money, you know what I'm saying? It was more like to build something else too. And obviously he lost on this thing. But, if you look a little detail on this guy, his passion is trading. And he was very much into, from what I read, into, looking at what goes on the trading floor on a daily basis, which was kind of highly unusual for a guy that was high up in the firm, that was running everything. So it tells you something about him and his characters. It's almost like, he didn't need the money. He wasn't really doing it exactly for personal wealth. It was more like he wanted a winning bet, and it maybe, it might have been going into a lot of different things, But he lost the bet. And that goes to tell you, even the best people that have the best information on the inside still don't know, because there's other people on the other side looking out for themselves, and they're cutting at your throat too. And that's what really happened with this guy. You want to point that out. Now, I wanted to highlight this guy here too. And, actually, in a way, I don't mind what he says. He actually was Jewish, and he converted to Orthodox Christian, and it's his brother Nathaniel, right? And I think he's a very honest person. I disagree with a lot of things he says. I think there's I don't like saying too much critical of Jews because they get too paranoid, and then they think I'm against them too much or some garbage, even though I know a lot of stuff that might be true. But I think he's missing the point with a lot of this stuff. When I look at the guys that run the world, that really are the evil guys, I look at like Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, Bush, Soros even. Soros is Jewish, but you know what I mean? They're not all Jews, and he kind of makes it sound like they all are, And actually, my opinion is, in the United States, as far as if we're going to turn to an elite that's actually going to help this country more than anybody, I think we're going to find it more in the Jewish elite than in any other elite. Although they're not perfect, They're the best bet you got, and you know, if you say the lesser of the evils, they're definitely the least evil out of all of them. There's no doubt about that. That I'm 100% sure of. And you know, I think some of these types of deals need to get the attention of people. You know, the ones I was just talking about with the isotopes for. Yeah, that one was amazingly large. I saw like billions and 1.2 trillion dollars. I was like, holy God, it's freaking astronomical. And but it needs to get into the attention of people in New York that actually have enough maybe power to do this stuff. But you know, when you're transacting this kind of money, I've heard that they might transfer money out of a bank in Belgium, and it'll be like Swift MT760, and supposedly it's supposed to go through, and it doesn't go through. Like the U.S. government will stop it, you know. And it tells me there's a hell of a lot of crap that's going on behind the scenes that I don't even care if you've been. There's like a hidden thing going on behind the scenes here. There's something else, you know, and it has to do with the so-called derivatives and stuff like that. But I seen some seriously big-ass money that I was like, this seems impossible, but it was real. It was real. You know, if you look up the values, you know, you look up the signatures and stuff and everything, people were real. The correspondence was real. So there is a hell of a lot of money out there, but, you know, I almost think the real problem is if it goes to be paid out. It's like sitting on the books in one form as a loan from one place to another place to another place to another place. And, you know, that's almost like the deal with some of these private trading platforms that are going on behind the scenes. You know, I think sometimes people are holding money in places and the money really isn't there. It isn't there. You know, not at all. But got my interest about this stuff was like some of the numbers I saw. It makes me wonder what the hell the elite really do have as far as numbers of wealth. You know, when they publish a number, what do they really have? I think it's a hell of a lot more. Now, I can't put detailed information on this internet, but I could tell you I came across some things that were pretty wild.